Very good point. So Benji and Tom, I want to bring you guys in. What do you think? Benji, let's start with you between Cody Ross and Josh Hamilton.
I'm going for Josh Hamilton. I think he's an older guy. I think it probably won't happen, but they need to figure out a way to get a smaller contract with him. It's not going to happen. He's going to want a lot of money for a very long time. I think bringing him in will get publicity. Maybe people buy more tickets, and I think he'll be a very good power hitter, that number 4 hitter we're looking for. Just Cody Ross. Maybe they could figure out a way to keep him, integrating him into the right field, and to do something with Johnny Gomez. But I think that Josh Hamilton would be a good sign for the Red Sox.
I'm going for Josh Hamilton too, because the publicity stunt almost always works, and you want to sell tickets if you're Red Sox ownership.
Wait, really?
Well,
the
I don't think they have a
publicity
problem
always
with
works?
Yeah, there isn't a ticket.
It went down this past year.
But they still sell a lot of tickets. I don't think that's the problem. I think why I said Hamilton is just because I am impatient. As a Red Sox fan, I'm going to be a little bit biased here. Excuse me for that. I want a ring.
2 championships not enough?
I want a ring. I want another ring. That's that's what the fans desire.
How does it feel to want, Dylan?
That's what the fans desire. But
try being a Cubs fan. 100 years.
But the thing is, the Red Sox,
now.
It's all about, as I said earlier, rebuilding versus getting the ring. And as you said, they said they're not going to make any big signings. But if you want to,
it's the Red Sox. They probably will.
If you want to keep it with teams like the Yankees and the Tigers and the Angels, you got to make some of those big signings.
Maybe no big signings, but there could be a big trade. And that's always a possibility.
The Red Sox do have a lot of money. I mean, they got rid of Adrian Gonzalez, Carl Crawford, as well as Josh Beckett, and Nick Punto was kind of irrelevant, but just to throw that in. So they do have a lot of money to try to sign Josh Hamilton, but it's whether you want more of a spread to get 2 or 3, decent guys, or do you want one really good guy? What do you guys think?
When you have a lot of money like the Red Sox, you almost need to make either one big splash or make a few very good players, like you were saying. I think they should just go for the big money. They have all this money. Even if they sign Hamilton, there's still other players out there they probably could sign. What do you think?
I agree with you. They should go for the big money. Go for the star. Go for the star. Josh Hamilton. You can bring wins and you can bring wins to your franchise.
Right, and the Red Sox are a team that I think also needs some pitching. R.A. Dickey, who was with the Mets, do you think they should try to go for him, another knuckleballer?
I think they should. I mean, you saw how effective it was with Tim Wakefield, how good he was for us for the time he was with us. And I think they should try and go for maybe a trade, maybe something else, try and get that good new starting pitcher. Really, we have Lackey and Buchholz, and they're really just okay, even though we pay them so much money.
We need a number one. The Red Sox need a
number one starter.
Yeah, number one starter, and the Red Sox obviously didn't have that this year. That's why they were where they were this year, other than Bobby Valentine, and they really need a starting pitcher, and R.A. Dickey can provide that.
And also, Zach Greinke is also a free agent. Do you think they should try to bring him in as well?
Possibly. I mean, he's looking for a lot of money, and we're already talking about how much we want Hamilton. So it's almost like you got to pick pick who you want to spend all your money on. I mean, maybe they could try and spend a lot of the money on both of them, but I don't know about him.
Well, guys, Greinke's he's kind of been a bust over the past few years after winning the Cy Young. He hasn't really done much. Been with Milwaukee.
He's been okay though.
He
hasn't been John Lackey.
He hasn't been awful, but I think
he hasn't been John Lackey. He hasn't been Daisuke either.
I think what the Red Sox are looking for are either a superstar or a good young pitcher to rebuild, not an okay pitcher.
Right, and R.A. Dickey, he's an older guy. He's a veteran who I think would bring in not only talent but also more help in the clubhouse and presence, leadership. Right.
David Ortiz can be a leader, but we need almost more than one leader. You can't just have one older person who thinks he can lead the clubhouse.
As we were talking about earlier with the beer and chicken, the Red Sox could use a lot of leadership.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
They didn't really have
Benji.
none of it that fateful September.
That's a very good point, Benji, that most they say societies thrive when they have, 2 leaders, and I think it's the same thing with anything, including baseball teams. I think you have one on the offensive side with David Ortiz, and then you can have a pitcher. All right, Dickey, so that's a good point. What do you think about bringing in perhaps another leader, Tom?
I think it would be a fantastic idea because teams, to get a championship, you have to have leadership. The Bruins had Mark Recchi, and I like to make a hockey reference. And, they had Mark Recchi. They had a veteran presence in that locker room, multiple veteran presences to win a championship, and that's what the Red Sox need.
All right, let's bring in Liam and Dylan. What do you guys think about bringing in a veteran leader, pitcher who can lead?
Well, I would like it. I would definitely like it because I'm all for going for the ring. And R.A. Dickey, great, tremendous pitcher. He's getting old, but as I said earlier, and as you guys said earlier, the Red Sox need another leader. They need that leadership.
I don't think R.A. Dickey's the guy. They do need a leader. I don't know who that would necessarily be. I mean, they look to bring one in with David Ross and Johnny Gomes a bit, both players that have been decent in their clubhouse. And it should be an interesting offseason. But we're going to go to a break now. Right when we get back, we're going to go on to college football.
So stay tuned.
Right after this break.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Jinx.
Welcome back to K Sports Sunday.
Yep, we're gonna jump right in it. We're talking about the BCS. Alabama defeated number 2. Alabama defeated number 3 Georgia, 32-28 in the SEC championship. It is not final yet, but it looks like Alabama will take on Notre Dame in the national championship. Guys, what do you think about that?
All right, thanks, Dylan. So, in the Rose Bowl, I want to talk about that game. Stanford beat UCLA 27-24 on Friday, and yesterday Wisconsin 70-31. That's right, 70-31 over Nebraska. It is assumed that it will be Stanford against Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl, and as Dylan mentioned, it looks like it will be number 2 Alabama and number 1 Notre Dame in the national championship.
About that Wisconsin game, Jason,
they had over 600 yards.
Yeah, it was. I really liked it because it looked like the old Wisconsin again with Monty Ball, and they just looked good again. This season has obviously been a one that's far under exceeded their expectations.
They lost 5
They're
games
unranked,
in the Rose
but
Bowl.
Nebraska.
They're making the Rose Bowl.
Nebraska was number 12. They're actually the first 5 lost team to make the Rose Bowl.
Wow, yeah.
So good ending to their season. Oh, not ending yet, but good ending to their regular season. A big one over 12 Nebraska. They were having a good season, so that was a big win. Yeah. What do you guys think?
Yeah. So Dylan, what do you think about the Rose Bowl? Let's start with that game, Stanford, Wisconsin.
The Rose Bowl. I think Stanford and Wisconsin are both physical teams, and I think they both play physical. They both have great running games in Wisconsin. I know they lost 5 games, but they're a better team than that. I get it, but some of them, their warnings wasn't exactly a lot of motivation for their season. To be honest, all they really had to do, it was so easy for them. The Big Ten championship is no other, because Ohio State and Penn State both were ineligible. So all they had to do was beat Purdue and Indiana, basically, and that's how they got there.
Right, in Wisconsin, they had a coaching change early. They lost Russell Wilson to the NFL, so early in the season was shaky, but
now
Monty Ball
they got
stepped
a new
up.
quarterback now, and he's looked great. And I think I think Wisconsin matches well with Stanford, because Stanford doesn't have a great quarterback either.
I'm actually going to disagree with you there. Stanford is, I believe they're 8th in the country. Am I right?
Yeah,
8th in the country.
They have a good defense.
I think they have a good defense. I think their quarterback's no Andrew Luck at least yet, but he's been doing good. I think he's better.
He definitely hasn't played bad.
He hasn't played bad. He's played good. I think that, I don't think it's a great matchup. I think personally Stanford will, just make mincemeat of Wisconsin. What do you guys think about that?
I totally disagree. I mean, to be honest, Stanford. I know they're number 8 in the country, but they haven't dominated anyone. They kind of play solid football, don't turn the ball over, run the ball, play good defense. But Wisconsin is gonna smack. They're probably one of the most physical teams.
I'm gonna disagree with you again. They took Notre Dame to overtime. They beat USC. They beat UCLA. They've played tough games. They've showed they can beat tough teams. Wisconsin's not a tough team.
And
I think.
Stanford, I think they're able to hang into close games, which means
they
have more mental toughness, and I think they'll be able to beat Wisconsin.
Mental toughness.
They're definitely not a pushover. That's something.
But what I'm saying is, I know they took Notre Dame into overtime, but Notre Dame. But I know they put saying Wisconsin's a physical team too. They have an offensive line that's huge.
But they haven't showed up this season. You don't know which Wisconsin's going to show up. The one that scored 70 points on Nebraska last hour, or the one that's been struggling all season. You don't know which Monty Ball is going to show up. It's just they're way too unpredictable. And Stanford is I think a very solid, very good team who's beating great teams, who's taking good teams to overtime. I think it'll definitely not even be close.
Okay.
So Benji, Wisconsin, they were technically 3rd in their part of the Big Ten because Penn State and Ohio State were ineligible. So Wisconsin is a 5-loss team. Stanford is, I believe, a 1-loss team or a 2-loss team. So 2-loss team. So how do you think the Rose Bowl fares out?
I still think it's gonna fare to be a close one. I mean, like you said, Wisconsin has a very good running game. The quarterback is very good. I think he had a 76-yard rushing touchdown yesterday. I saw. So I think it's going to be a fairly close one. It's one game. Anything can really happen. So I don't think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a fairly close one.
And bringing in the point about one game, that's a very good point. We saw just last night, Nebraska, number 12 team, Wisconsin had 5 losses, and they beat them by 39 points, 70 to 31.
Wisconsin's on their game. They can beat anyone because they're very physical.
They're really hot right now. Obviously, beating a team 70 to 31. You're almost on a hot streak, and that'll help you.
Yeah.
I'm kind of disappointed in this Rose Bowl, with all the sanctions between Ohio State and Penn State. I would have loved to see an Ohio State-Stanford Rose Bowl. To me, that's just it's real disappointing to me. I know I said they'll crush them. I still think they will crush them, but I don't think crush. What I'm trying to say is.
You don't think it'll be a big blowout kind of thing?
I think it'll be,
it'll be a solid defeat.
It'll be a solid defeat, like a few touchdown wins, but not like a hammering college football, like.
It won't be like a 17. It
won't
be like a 70-31. Yeah, 70-30.
It'll be a solid win for Stanford, and think about it. Ohio State went 13-0 under Urban Meyer with all these sanctions. It just shows the real brotherhood they had on that team.
It'll be interesting to see them once they're out of the sanctions.
This is the 3rd straight Rose Bowl that Wisconsin has been to. They lost to TCU in a close game. I believe it was 23-20. And they lost to Oregon last year by a total of 6 or 7 points, and now they are in it again. Benji, do you see the curse of the Rose Bowl hurting Wisconsin again?
I don't. I think it's fourth time's the charm. People say 3rd time is charm, but if you've done it so many times, you usually be able to win. No, I think Wisconsin has a chance.
I think the way Wisconsin are much more hot now, and I think Wisconsin with Stanford not being an overwhelming team, not an explosive offense, no great, just solid team. It's going to be a great matchup, and they definitely do have a good chance they have a decent chance of winning.
And Wisconsin isn't really a 5-loss team; they're more of like a 3 or 2 or 3. So
that's because that's because some early problems in the season.
Right. So it's like, and I know they're playing a team that has 1 or 2 losses, but I think their record doesn't accurately reflect how they're playing. So I think there's a good chance for them to win.
I agree. Yeah.
I think. Well, actually, I disagree. That your record shows how you play. Yes, there's no pictures on the scorecard. There's nothing like that. They haven't been playing well this season. They've been playing good. And, granted, they aren't in the toughest of conferences. So they have Ohio State and Nebraska. But they aren't, the Big Ten is certainly not what it used to be.
Well, how about Northwestern? They were, I believe, 9-3. People thought that they would go to the Rose Bowl.
But
they ended up getting
Nebraska,
right. But I know, but they ended up losing to Nebraska. So you have Northwestern, you have Michigan, Ohio State, a team that probably would have made the BCS bowl.
Or national, possibly.
Well, they would have, because it would have been Notre Dame and Ohio State, the 2 undefeated
teams. Yeah, but I don't know
teams.
if the computers would have liked Ohio State with the Big Ten being the way it was this year.
But they're undefeated. You mentioned Michigan. Still have the better record than Alabama.
But in the polls, just to let you know, in the polls, they're not number 2 in the polls.
Right.
Like AP poll, they're not number 2.
Now, Jason, you mentioned Michigan. Another team, like Wisconsin, that was supposed to be great, but Denard Robinson didn't show up, and their entire team didn't show up.
Denard Robinson got injured halfway through the season.
The team didn't show up, though, is my point. So I'm saying the Big Ten is definitely it's not what it used to be. It's certainly not a one that's an easy conference, but it's not as hard as it used to be, and certainly not as hard as an SEC or a Pac-12.
All right, guys, we're going to have to wrap up this BCS segment. But we're going to send it back over to Jason with
Super
his
Saturday.
take on Super Saturday.